Hey folks, welcome back. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 2022. That's right, a new year is quickly approaching, which means that I've been waiting approximately 10 months to make that joke. But before we dive headfirst into the unpredictability of the future, there's one more thing we should do, and that's dwell on the past for the last fleeting moments we can before it's torn away from us. 2021, what a year, right? I feel a lot more confident saying that this year than I did last year. I mean, hey, we're not completely out of the screaming hellscape yet, but 2021 at the very least has served in providing some sort of vision for a better future. You know what I did this year? Played video games. Just like I do every year. One of my favorite things to do at the culmination of a year is to look back on said video games and take some time to determine which ones really gave me a hoot-hollerin' good time. There were a few games that I played that didn't quite crack the top 10, but were still a lot of fun. Skatebird was a game I was anticipating for a long time. Tony Hawk, but with parrots on tech decks, there was no fucking chance that I wasn't gonna play this game. Admittedly, it started out a bit buggy, but the developer's been working to fix a lot of stuff, and in the end, it turned out to be a really fun time. Bloober Team's The Medium was a nice change of pace for the Layers of Fear developers. It had a cool old school Silent Hill vibe, and it was visually stunning. It was lacking in some of the gameplay for sure, but it nails the eeriness of an abandoned building, and the visuals of a communist-era Poland were extremely cool, especially coming from a development team that is based in Poland. Played a little bit of Bravely Default 2, and I can honestly say that I'm not a big fan of Bravely Default 2. If the description, the most generic old school JRPG imaginable with terrible voice acting and a very uninteresting story, sounds intriguing to you, then I would go for it. But hey, enough digging my own grave. This video is all about positivity. That's right, folks, it's top 10 time again. I hope you're excited to sit and listen to me talk about my personal opinions for between 10 and 30 minutes. Just like last year, my top 10 list is a little different from the average list in that it's not focused only on games that came out in 2021. Rather, I like to compile a list of games that I played for the first time this year. They might not be new to you, but they're new to me. Even if some of them are almost as old as I am. So without further introduction, welcome to Idiot Ben's Top 10 Games of 2021, baby. The fact that it took until 2018 for someone to make an online open-world pirate video game frankly makes this scallywag need a swig of the old grog. Me hearties. Sorry, I'll go easy on the pirate talk. Now look, I know Sea of Thieves was pretty panned on release because it lacked in things to do, and even still, it lacks in some level of variety when it comes to gameplay and missions. But god damn is this game a lot of fun. I can't remember the last time I had as good a time with a multiplayer game than I did this year with Sea of Thieves. It's just so fun to sail around with your homies looking for buried treasure or a sunken ghost ship or forgotten souls lost to the unforgiving sea. Okay, Captain Grog Swillen Dillon's over here.
I got snow.
What?
Captain Grog Swillen Dillon.
You're just making sounds.
Captain Grog Swillen Dillon, as in Dylan who swills grog.
It's Captain Grog.
There's also a ton of customization options. I'm sure a lot of people give this game shit for having microtransactions, but to be fair, I think there's a really sizable amount of things that you can get just by spending in-game currency. Plus, it's literally all cosmetic. It's not like there's anything that gives you an advantage in PvP or anything. I think one thing I love so much about Sea of Thieves is the unpredictability of it all. You'll be on your way to an outpost after spending a few hours completing missions and searching for treasure, when suddenly another boat will show up, manned by 13-year-olds, and they'll fill your ship with cannonballs and steal all your loot. Hey, there's another ship over there. I wonder if they want to be friends.
What? Where?
Right behind us. Careening directly toward us. There's a ship over there.
Where?
Right behind us.
Look with your eye.
Or sometimes you'll be starting a mission and then all of a sudden scary music will hit. And then suddenly a kraken will spawn and he'll say, "This is my pirate ship now." And like, what are you gonna do about it? He's a giant mythical squid monster. But sometimes you and your crewmates band together and manage to win a PvP battle or take out a kraken or a megalodon, and you feel like a god. Of course, I couldn't talk about Sea of Thieves without mentioning the Pirates of the Caribbean expansion that was announced at E3 and released barely a week later. And holy shit, man, this was a bit of a mess, I have to say. Sea of Thieves is, I'll say, more glitchy than the average game as is, but this expansion was borderline unfinished. The sheer amount of bugs my friends and I experienced while playing was unreal, some of which were damn near game-breaking. There was also a noticeable lack of variety in the missions. I swear to God I did this stupid statue puzzle like 10 times in one mission alone. That said though, as a person who has been to Walt Disney World more times than I would like to admit, It was pretty fucking magical going through the first mission, which was basically like a remake of the Disney World ride. I don't want to leave this game on a negative note, but I don't think it would be fair if I just let all that slide. It's not a perfect game by any means, but I had an endless amount of fun searching the 7 Seas for booty this year. But in the end, I learned that friendship truly was the most valuable treasure of all. One of the first indie games I ever played was FTL, Faster Than Light. I got it in a Humble Bundle when I first built my PC back in 2013. And it works just as good as the day I got it. And FTL was a lot of fun. I didn't get as super crazy into it as some people have told me they did, but I had my fair share of entertaining jaunts through space. But then at one point this year I heard Donkey offhandedly mention Into the Breach in a video and I thought, that looks cool. And then this happened over the course of a week. Into the Breach was made by the same developers as FTL, but rather than a space combat-based survival strategy game, it's more of a Final Fantasy Tactics top-down turn-based strategy game. It's a roguelike game where the goal is to prevent this evil alien species from presumably destroying the world or whatever, I don't read. There are 4 different zones with multiple levels within, and you have to beat 2 out of the 4 of them to go to the final battle. So it's a lot like FTL in that regard. It's not a super long-term game, you beat it in a couple hours. It more rewards multiple playthroughs. You get to choose 3 mechs which come in 4 different variations. Prime mechs, which are anthropomorphic and usually tend to be bruisers who do melee damage. This guy grabs enemies and throws them behind him. This guy flips a target's attack in the other direction. This guy pushes a unit back and lights the tiles on fire. Ranged mechs, which have a lot of movement and have lobbed attacks, allowing them to go through units and attack from far away. This guy shoots a rocket and expels a cloud behind him that disables attacks. This guy freezes his target and himself, which acts as a shield. This guy lobs a rock that deals damage and pushes adjacent units away. Brute mechs, which are similar to ranged mechs, but they have less range, usually do more damage, and can't go through units. This guy shoots a hook missile that pulls enemies toward him. This guy rams himself into units. This guy hops over enemies and drops a bomb on them. And finally, science mechs. These guys have non-damaging abilities that are good for strategizing. This guy pulls units one space toward him. This guy swaps places with targets, and this guy pushes all units around him away. The mechs come in groups of 3 that tend to complement each other, but once you've unlocked different groups, you have the free choice to mix and match however you want. Also, as you play, you gain upgrades for your mechs that give them different abilities, allow you to upgrade one of your abilities. You can get different pilots for your mechs that have special properties like extra healing, making mechs float, stuff like that. I think my favorite thing about Into the Breach is the sheer amount of strategizing it allows for. You don't want to just kill all the enemies, you also want to protect the structures around the level, so you have to be careful about where you attack or how you push enemies around and stuff. And there are so many fun ways to do stuff. I love the swap mech because he flies, meaning that he can stand on pits and lava and stuff. So you just position him near a non-flying enemy, you can swap places with them and drop him right into hell. One hit KO. Overall, I could talk about Into the Breach all day. It's undoubtedly one of my favorite indie games ever, and I cannot recommend it enough. I played a lot of 3D platformers this year. Some of them were Gex, but some of them were A Hat in Time. A Hat in Time is what Yooka-Laylee should have been. It's a fun as hell old school 3D collectathon game. There's so much to love about this game. It has a great sense of humor, beautiful visuals, engaging and believable worlds and characters. The soundtrack is amazing. Grant Kirkhope has expectedly knocked it out of the park once again, even going so far as to fill the game with adaptive music. You know how much I love that shit. It never gets dull at any point. Every level gives you a new fun and unique puzzle to solve. But the best thing about A Hat in Time, in my opinion, is that absolutely none of the immersion is at the cost of gameplay. This is one of the most solid 3D platformers ever made, bar none. The movement is just so fluid and precise. It's fast-paced, satisfying. You can jump really high, burst in midair, swing across gaps, air dash into enemies straight out of Sonic, and then you can use that momentum to keep moving. The different hats you get give you different abilities that you can swap on the fly. You got Ice Hat, you got Run Hat, you got Infiltrate the Ghost Dimension hat. And they never really feel like they're only useful in certain levels. As the stages go on, you really do have to regularly switch between hats to complete the levels. I fucking love these time shift levels. They're like those extra stages in Mario Sunshine, but the platforms make this noise like you're walking on glass, and it's just... But most of all, the music in these stages, man. Overall, A Hat in Time is a must-play for anyone who likes collectathon games or 3D platformers in general. And that's not even including the 2 DLC expansions. I haven't even played those yet. On that note, I'm thinking about using a slogan. I was thinking, Idiot Ben. Can't be f***ed. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me just be real with you here up top. The only Fallout game I have ever played is Fallout 4, and it was fun. That's a uncontroversial statement, I think. The reason I want to say that is to make it clear that I'm not entirely certain whether or not The Outer Worlds is a faithful spiritual successor to the old style of Bethesda open-world RPGs. All I know is that The Outer Worlds is one hell of a good time. It's like Fallout, but instead of nuclear apocalypse, it's aliens. It takes place in an alternate future where basically the entire universe has been colonized by giant megacorporations, completely monopolizing all the production and jobs so that people live in an extreme late capitalist hellscape, completely void of any sort of workers' rights or personal freedoms. But that'll never happen, thankfully. Plot aside though, it's a really fun open-world Western RPG. You got your main quest, which offers some flexibility in what route you decide to take. You know, take down the evil corporations or maintain the status quo. Up to you, it's just a video game. But you've also got a ton of side quests, which take you down little mini storylines, which are a lot of fun. The combat isn't insanely anything to write home about. Pretty standard first-person shooter stuff along the lines of Fallout. You get all kinds of weapons that do different kinds of damage, physical, plasma, corrosion, shock, and N-ray, each of which are more effective against different types of enemies. But one thing that is a lot of fun is the slow motion mechanic. Rather than having the VATS mechanic from Fallout where you zoom in on an enemy and it shows you which part of the body to shoot, Outer Worlds has an ability called tactical time dilation, which allows you to temporarily slow time to a near standstill so that you can zoom into your scope and take them out action movie style. I've heard people really criticize this aspect of the game, but I don't know, there's something satisfying to my reptile brain about busting out headshots in slow motion. Another thing that Outer Worlds brought over from the Bethesda style RPG format is companions, which is one of my favorite things about Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. In Outer Worlds, you can bring 2 companions with you, and for the most part, they're all great characters. Parvati is my favorite. She's this sheltered, naive engineer who has an entire side quest where you have to set her up with one of the engineers you meet during the main quest. She's very shy, lacks some social skills, and always personifies robots. She's just adorable. I couldn't help but keep her by my side for the whole game. And there's also a Sam. He's a cleaning robot that you find on the ship and repair. He's completely non-sentient, but some of his voice lines are comedy gold.
Error. This unit is unable to process the service request. Ah! Customer, please repeat the command.
He also has this entirely one-sided sexual relationship with the AI that controls the ship, and it's also hilarious. Especially if you have the sense of humor of a 7th grader like me.
I am a dirty, autonomous digital astrogator, Sam. I haven't cleaned my internals in ages. Can you hardly process the sheer quantity of dust built up in there? Tell me you've seen worse.
He's admittedly not the best in combat because you can't change his gear or give him new weapons, but I have such a soft spot for robots that I couldn't help but bring him everywhere. Again, this is a game that I could spend a lot of time talking about, but for now I'll just leave it at Outer Worlds good, go buy. And hey, don't tell anybody, but Outer Worlds is actually free on Xbox Game Pass. And you can use my account if you want. Don't worry, free of charge. All I ask in return is your credit card number and a list of fears. I am a huge fan of Castlevania, and I always have been. Even when I was a kid, I was subjecting myself to the unforgiving brutality of the first Castlevania game on Game Boy Advance. That said, I never got into the RPG/Metroid style of games like Circle of the Moon or Area of Sorrow or Blood on the Dance Floor or whatever. And it's weird because I love Metroidvania games. Super Metroid, Blasphemous, Hollow Knight. You could argue that Dark Souls falls into that category, and I love Dark Souls. But a few months ago I decided to change that and play a game that has been on my list for many years, and that game is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And holy shit, this game deserves all of the praise it gets. It's considered by many to be the best game in the Castlevania series. And honestly, I don't know if it's all that fair to compare it to old school Castlevania games because it's so different. But I will say that it very quickly became one of my favorite games of all time. It nails the motivation right off the bat. You start out by controlling Alucard. Little known fact, but Alucard is actually Dracula backwards. Pretty sneaky, huh? Hid that one right under your nose. At the beginning of the game, Alucard is absolutely fucking unstoppable. He's fast, powerful, basically kills everything in one hit. And then the Grim Reaper shows up and takes everything away from Alucard, making him pretty much useless. Well, I mean, he's still the son of Dracula, but these guys take a couple hits instead of instead of 1. It just makes you want to become stronger. It's the best part of any Metroidvania. After Grimmy takes all your abilities away, you're set loose on Dracula's massive, sprawling castle full of tough enemies, bosses of considerably varying difficulty, puzzles that require different abilities to solve, all that good shit. The best thing about Symphony of the Night is how powerful you feel as you progress. The game encourages a lot of backtracking, and it feels good to go back to an area full of enemies that posed a real threat early on and just fucking blast through them in one hit, no problem. You'll be at a puzzle thinking, what but then later you get a new ability and bada bing, that's how you solve it, baby, you're a genius. Admittedly, there are a few puzzles that aren't exactly common sense. Like this one where there's this button in the wall which looks like you can press it, but nothing you do works. What you are supposed to do is equip the demon familiar guy and he'll say,
A switch. Why don't I press it and see?
And press the button for you. Like, come on, man, who would think to do that? That's really the only criticism I can honestly think of this game, though. It's seriously a masterpiece. I can't recommend it enough. And, as if all that wasn't enough, I haven't even talked about one of the best things about Symphony of the Night. The music. Castlevania games always have baller soundtracks, but holy shit, does this game take it to another level, man. You got rock jams, spooky stuff, the mystical stuff, what more can I say, fellas? Symphony of the Night is one of the best games of all time. Go get yourself a PlayStation emulator. Taking a swift change in tone here, sorry for the whiplash. Unfortunately, I cannot afford to cover it, so maybe contact your insurance company. I fucking love Banjo-Kazooie. I did an entire video where I determined mathematically that it's a better game than Mario 64. And you can't disagree with me because I used the scientific method. And people said a degree in sociology would get me nowhere. But given how much I very clearly love Banjo-Kazooie, it might come as a surprise that the first time I ever played it was within the last trip around the sun. You might say that my short-term experience with the game negates my opinion, but I don't care. If you take issue with that, feel free to email me and we can figure out a time and place where we can meet to fight. But, back to the topic at hand, which Banjo-Kazooie and Mario 64 are the grandfathers of 3D platforming collectathons. The gay grandfathers who love each other. But I think the reason that Banjo-Kazooie holds up so well today alongside Mario 64 is because it's actually quite different in concept. Mario 64 had the go into level, find power star, exit, re-enter level format that has gone on to become the standard in many 3D platformers. But Banjo-Kazooie pioneered the open world style where you can keep going in a level even after getting the main collectible. And holy shit, man, Banjo-Kazooie was way ahead of its time. This game is non-stop ongoing fun from the moment you start it up until the credits. It's just constantly throwing new stuff at you. Different things to transform into, new abilities, different types of missions. The game has such a full, immersive world with fantastic sense of humor and wonderful characters. I can remember so many amazing NPCs from Banjo-Kazooie, man. Naughty the Beaver from Click Clock Wood, who you have to help get into his house. Snorkel the Dolphin from Rusty Bucket Bay, who's stuck under an anchor. Goby the Camel, who gets more and more upset with you because you keep ground pounding his hump, understandable. All the characters have their own unique sound effect for when they talk, and it's almost fun to approach the NPCs to see what they sound like. Banjo and Kazooie themselves are such great characters. Banjo is this goofy oaf who's just enthusiastic to save the day, while Kazooie is this sarcastic, pessimistic bitch who throws insults at everyone she meets. It really is the perfect dichotomy. Banjo is easy to project onto, while Kazooie serves as a believable and cynical comedy relief. And on top of that, kind of feel like a broken record, but this game has one of the best sound designs in any game ever. Grant Kirkhope is, as we all know, a fucking genius. I don't think that it's all that much of a stretch to say that Banjo-Kazooie popularized adaptive music in video games. Sure, it's not the first game to do it, but I think it definitely put adaptive music on the map. Overall, not much more to say, baby. Go give Banjo-Kazooie a whirl. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Resident Evil 8, holy shit! That's right, fellas, we're finally getting into a game that was actually released this year, and it's one of the biggest releases in a long time. Resident Evil 7 was so fucking awesome. It completely revitalized perhaps my favorite series of video games that have been struggling for so many years. It was just such a perfect return to form. It set you loose in this big nasty house with locked doors and special keys and hidden items. It encouraged managing how many bullets and items you used. It gave you puzzles. It was just such a breath of fresh air for fans of the series such as myself. Resident Evil 8 takes Resident Evil 7 and kicks it into the goddamn stratosphere. Now look, I know that Resident Evil 8 isn't as minimal and atmospheric as its predecessor, and yes, it has a lot of crazy action scenes, but this is still Resident Evil we're talking about here. It's not like explosions and giant monsters weren't already somewhat par for the course. But anyway, this game had a ton of hype leading into it. What with the 10-foot tall Victorian vampire succubus lady that everybody wanted to, and in my opinion, the game lived up to the hype and then some. Apart from Lady Dimitrescu being gone so early in the game, but whatever, she's scary anyway. Rather than taking place in one big mansion for the majority of the game, Resident Evil 8 takes you through 4 different areas surrounding a decrepit, eerie, yet beautiful abandoned Romanian village during winter. There are a few little gripes I had, a few forced unnecessary jump scares. The game sorta tries to be Doom in a couple instances. And why does everybody in this remote village in Romania speak English without an accent? But other than that, I can honestly say that this game exceeded my expectations. There are so many things to love. The dreading wintry beauty of the village, the scary Dracula-esque foreboding Castle Dimitrescu, House Beneviento where your weapons are taken away and you're temporarily plunged into a Silent Hill-style psychological horror game, the nasty swampy Moro Reservoir, Heisenberg's giant terrifying factory, the Duke. How do you not love the Duke? And on top of that, maybe a lot of people disagree, but the story is one of the most compelling in a Resident Evil game in years in my opinion. Obviously I'm not going to spoil it, but the end of the game had me gripped. I needed to find out what was going to happen. Resident Evil Village was such a welcome follow-up to 7, and I can't wait to see where the series goes from here. This is Nintendo's $60 game, and I loved it so much that I paid $90 for it. When Metroid Dread was first announced, I was obviously very excited about it. An all-new 2D Metroid game? We haven't had one of those in years. Well, obviously I didn't play that one, so maybe tone down the sarcasm. But Metroid Dread is so awesome, man. I couldn't have asked for a better 2D Metroid game. Everything about it is fun. It's fast, challenging. The combat never gets old. When you pull off a parry, it's like, yes, so fucking good. The movement is unreal. You can sprint, dash midair, slide, do the rocket dash thing. One of the biggest deals about this game was the Emmys, terrifying, indestructible robots that chase you down relentlessly and kill you in one hit. I love that this sort of thing is becoming more common in games recently. One big, terrifying monster that chases you constantly. Mr. X in Resident Evil 2, the Xenomorph in Alien Isolation, pretty much every monster in Amnesia and Outlast. So the idea of that in a 2D environment was really intriguing, and it certainly did not disappoint, let me tell you. I think they did a really good job of it too, in the sense that Emmys only chase you in designated zones. You might say it's a cop-out, but I like it because it means that the game can still maintain the open-style exploration format that I love about Metroid. Plus, you'll be exploring and you'll realize that you have to go through an Emmy zone, and it just gives you this drop in your stomach kind of feeling, and you have to sort of brace yourself for it. I guess you could say that it's... I guess one could say that it gives you a... I suppose you could even say that it gives you a dreadful... You might even... And plus, like, look at how gorgeous this game is, man. Look at these graphics. There's always stuff going on in the background that you'll miss if you're not paying attention. And look at these loading screens, bro. Holy shit, man. Look at how cool Samus looks. Another thing I like about Metroid Dread is how it doesn't dwell too much on previous titles. Obviously, it has elements from the Metroid series, like aliens and enemies that are constant in the universe. And honestly, I was expecting a lot more nostalgia baiting in this game, and it didn't have it. Ridley doesn't appear even once in this game. Trust me, I love Ridley, but like, he doesn't need to be in every single Metroid game. As far as I know, the only boss that makes a reappearance is Kraid. And who doesn't love Kraid? Look at this fat piece of shit, I love him. Again, I could go on and on about Metroid Dread, but I think I'll just sum up my opinion by saying Metroid Dread, more like Metroid Bread, because this game's the best thing since sliced bread. Every long-running video game series has that one installment, the one game in the series that is considered to be the best by the majority of fans. Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, Resident Evil 4, Mega Man 2, Super Smash Bros. Melee, the original Dark Souls. You may not agree that they're the best. I wouldn't personally say that Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda game in my opinion. The same goes for Resident Evil 4 or Mario 64. But regardless of my opinion or your opinion, the fact is that if you asked a ton of people what's the best game in X series, you'll probably get something of a consensus around one installment. However, sometimes the reason that the game is considered to be the best in the series is because it's true. And that is the case with Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy has always been a constant in my life. Growing up with two older brothers who were huge fans of the series made it a commonplace in my household. But the thing was, I was a kid, and JRPGs aren't exactly the most accessible genre of game for kids. They're super complicated and usually require a massive investment of time. So as a result, I had this sort of proxy relationship with Final Fantasy. I love the games, but I never really personally played them. As I've gotten older, that's changed. I played Final Fantasy IX, a good amount of 6, and I've played a bit of most of the other games. But this year, during a week break from school, I went into full degenerate mode and played Final Fantasy VII from start to finish, and holy shit, man. I know I'm not setting the world on fire by saying this, but I think it's my favorite game in the series. It's very similar gameplay-wise to all the other Final Fantasy games of the time, but as usual, it's got a few things that make it a unique experience. Materia seems kind of confusing at first, but it's really quite simple when you get into it. You just equip it and you can use that spell. It's that easy, baby. It really gives you a lot of freedom. You can switch to any character and give them a spell you like. And on that note, every character in this game is amazing. Except for Cait Sith. I don't really understand why they are here. Barrett hasn't aged well, but he's still super cool, gun hand and stuff. Tifa's kind of one-dimensional. Okay, no, wait, I swear I like these characters. I've just chosen a bad few to start. I'm just kidding. I love the whole cast. It really is a stellar lineup of playable characters. Honestly, what kind of shocked me was that my favorite character ended up being Aerith. Her back and forth with Cloud being able to get through his depressive outward demeanor was really great. Thank God this game came out in 1997, because I don't know if I would have been able to handle, you know, that thing that happens. Honestly, I don't know what more to say. Final Fantasy VII is a goddamn masterpiece. It deserves all of the praise it gets. And it still holds up really well today. It doesn't really have any antiquated game design choices. Hope the remake's good. Haven't gotten a chance to play that yet. I hope it doesn't end just after Midgar and use a flashback as an excuse to shove Sephiroth in before he's supposed to show up. Just off the top of my head, you know, that'd be stupid. I played a lot of phenomenal games this year. So many, in fact, that when I finished playing them, I kept reassigning my spot for Game of the Year. I played Final Fantasy VII, I thought, it's gotta be this. But then I played Resident Evil Village, and I thought, damn, that's a contender for sure. I even thought that way about Outer Worlds. And that was only partially because I played Outer Worlds in, like, early January, so there wasn't a lot of competition. But you know what? When I really got down to it near the end of the year, there was one game that I just couldn't kid myself about. It was without a doubt my favorite game that I played this year. And that game was Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now look, I'm not super knowledgeable about the Yakuza series. I know a little bit about the actual Yakuza, but as far as I know, those guys don't like it too much when you talk about them. But I've been informed by Arthur that I should edit this part out, so no harm done. Yakuza Like a Dragon isn't your average Yakuza game. The other games in the series are beat-em-ups, and as far as I know, the main character in all of them is Kiryu Kazuma. Again, I could be wrong. Give me a break, okay? There's a lot of games. Give me some time to play them. This game, however, is a turn-based JRPG starring series newcomer Ichiban Kasuga, a lovable oaf who sees the world as a reflection of Dragon Quest. That's right, fellas. Gamers can be gang members too. I sincerely, honest to God, love everything about Yakuza Like a Dragon. Every single playable character is amazing. Like I said, Ichiban is your traditional JRPG protagonist. He's confident, brave, values friendship, and he has a good heart. But he's also a complete buffoon a lot of the time. I hate to use a meme, but he very closely fits the definition of a himbo. Koichi Adachi is a disgraced cop who was thrown off the force for trying to stop corruption. But he's also basically just a dad, and the characters are constantly making fun of him for being unaware of slang and pop culture. Yu Nanba is Ichiban's homeless buddy who helps him during a critical time of need. He's logical and hesitant to get involved in danger. I guess you could say that he's the Shaggy of the group. Saiko Mudoka is a crafty bartender who often serves as the voice of reason when all the big dumb oaf dudes are being big dumb oaf dudes. Eri Kamataki, truth be told, she's not a super fleshed out character, but she has a lot of funny traits and I like her. Jun Gi-han, a member of a rival Korean gang, a super serious hitman basically born and raised to be high up in the extremely secretive Komijuru, which I think is how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, I don't speak Korean. And finally, my favorite character by a long shot, Tianyo Shou, which I think is how you pronounce it. Give me a break, okay? I don't speak Chinese either. Shou is a wisecracking, cocky dickhead who is the leader of the Yokohama Lumang, the local Chinese gang in the city. The game is very similar to Persona in that you benefit from spending time with your friends, and it doesn't feel like a chore at all. I think the reason I love this game so much, though, is the story and setting. The gameplay is amazing, for sure. It doesn't lack in that regard at all. But the idea of a JRPG taking place in a modern-day big city is just so amazing, and it's perfectly executed here. All the standard RPG mainstays are here, but they're tweaked to fit the atmosphere. For example, item shops are replaced by corner stores. You fight the kind of people you would find in a big city, like businessmen, pickpockets, guys in chicken costumes. I mean, you're laughing, but walk down the street in downtown Toronto. You'll be lucky to see something as tame as a guy in a chicken costume. In fact, this game makes me wish for a JRPG that takes place in Toronto. Someone please get on that. And also, this game is so goddamn funny, man. It's so stupid, and it's so good at not taking itself seriously. There's a mission where this guy wants you to bring baby formula into a daycare because he hears babies crying through the wall. And when you go in, it's like a maid cafe full of Yakuza guys wearing diapers. Like, what more do I need to say to you to get this game? It's a godforsaken masterpiece. And that is barely scratching the surface. There's so much to do in this game. It's a big commitment. It'll take you a long time to beat it. But if it sounds up your alley, I seriously can't recommend it enough. And there it is, folks. 10 whole games. God, my brain hardly works anymore. I hope you enjoyed my top 10. Even if you disagreed, I hope that it was fun to listen to me talk for a long time. Thank you so much for sticking with me through a full calendar year. It really means the world to me, truly. So with that, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. See ya for more laughs in 2022.